In 1968, John Lennon found himself pulled in two very different directions. His response was to write two different revolutions. Here, we'll examine his psychological and political evolution by looking closely at two distinct versions of the very same song recorded only months apart. The year 1968 was a moment of fracture. That cultural optimism of the Summer of Love was quickly giving way to the harsh realities of the Vietnam War and widespread student uprisings, from Paris all the way to Chicago. And right in the middle of it all was John Lennon, trying to figure out how to reconcile his private self with his public role. The result of this internal tension was not one song, but two radically different versions of Revolution. By comparing them, we get this rare window into the shifting psychology of an artist caught between the sanctuary of his own mind and the sheer chaos of the streets. To really understand Lennon's transformation, we have to begin in the quiet. This first version of the song, Revolution 1, is our starting point. It's a reflection of his mindset before he decided to take a definitive public stand. Revolution 1 was the very first track recorded for the White Album, back in May of 1968. It's slow, it's got the shuffle-driven feel, and its sound is just saturated with the influence of the Beatles' recent time in Rishikesh. The tempo itself suggests a kind of lack of urgency, a feeling of detached observation. This really reflects his immersion in transcendental meditation. What Lennon is advocating for here is a change of consciousness, a change of one's head, rather than a violent change of the political structure. He seems to be watching the world, not yet fully participating in its battles. The most telling moment, though, happens in the bridge. As Lennon sings the line you see here, he reveals his deep indecision with the very next word he says. Immediately after the word out, he whispers, in. This single, almost inaudible addition is a psychological fingerprint. It reveals a man who feels paralyzed by pressure from the new left to take a side. He's a neutralist, and he's struggling to decide if nonviolence is really a sufficient response to a world that feels like it's on fire. The second version, well, it's a sonic manifesto with a completely different purpose. Here, all that hesitation is gone, replaced by a raw, confrontational energy. The time between these two recordings is remarkably short. The slow, meditative track was recorded in May. By July, Lennon had produced this sharp, jagged single version. What exactly happened in those couple of months to cause such a dramatic shift? The sound of the single is a deliberate sonic assault. The guitars are famously overdriven, with the engineers plugging them directly into the mixing desk just to create this distorted tone that sounds like the equipment itself is breaking. This isn't just music, it's a statement of intent. And crucially, by the time this single was recorded, that whispered in was gone. In stripping away that ambiguity, Lennon made a definitive choice. He took a stance of radical nonviolence, essentially telling militant protesters that if their revolution involved destruction, he was officially out. Now we can place the two tracks side by side and chart the evolution of his thinking, from his internal world to his public proclamation. This table clearly illustrates the transformation, where Revolution 1 is the sound of the thinker with its meditative tempo and ambiguous stance. The single is the sound of the doer. Its aggressive sprint and distorted sound are there to deliver a definitive message. The song moves from an internal reflection to an external proclamation. This contrast presents a fascinating paradox. As Lennon's lyrics became more committed to nonviolence, the music itself grew more aggressive. This points to a very clear tactical shift in his thinking. Lennon was moving away from the passivity of 1967. He seemed to realize that to spread a message of peace in an increasingly loud world, he had to be louder than the noise. That distortion, it was his way of grabbing the listener by the collar, making sure his message of nonviolence was heard above all the din. This musical evolution was not just a stylistic choice. It was a pivotal moment in Lennon's life, and it marked the true birth of his political activism. The transition from Revolution 1 to the single version marks the moment he stopped observing from the sanctuary of his spiritual retreat and started engaging with the real world. He evolved from a man questioning his own involvement into an artist using his platform as a potent tool. In the end, the two versions don't contradict each other. One is a question, the other is an answer. Revolution 1 is the sound of a thinker, the single is the sound of a doer. When you listen to them together, they map the evolution of a soul trying to find its voice amidst the roar of history.
This analysis was brought to you by Notes and Silences.